Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela, coming at you, and it's been a couple weeks since I've been on the show. Had a lot going on. Had a wisdom tooth yanked out last week, so had some stitches in and whatnot. That's always fun. So it's been a few weeks. We had a little blizzard the last couple days, so it's been a while. I'm excited to chat with you today, and let's see here. Let's jump into current events. What just happened this past weekend was the Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier fight, which shout out to Dustin Poirier. I got to say that was a really amazing performance. People are hating on Conor, but I actually thought that he fought pretty well. I mean, he connected with some big shots. He's just been out of the cage for quite some time, and I think Dustin beat up his leg pretty good. His leg was destroyed, it seemed, after the fight. So that was cool. I can't say. I think some people were saying that they were surprised that Conor lost, but I can't say I was surprised. Dustin Poirier is a fucking savage, and caught him with that. What was it? I think a right hook that he knocked him out with. Fought a great fight, and that was not. I don't think should have been unexpected. So definitely. I think. Overall, good fight. Not the greatest fight, not the most exciting fight, but it's always cool. Whenever Conor fights, I think it always brings that extra little mystique and whatnot. So I was glad that I caught that. And, I was just training today, and I was training over at and I'm kind of shifting gears real quick here, but I was just training down at a public gym. And I was looking around, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about today. And one of the things that I couldn't help but notice, and I know I get a lot of questions, is just how to optimize training, right? Because so many guys will show up to the gym and they'll just do mindless shit. They'll just kind of hop on whatever they know, some old exercises from, the old football days or whatever, just whatever they see everybody else doing. And they kind of just hop on there and just go, right? And so what that usually leads to is you're just spinning your wheels, not making any real progress. You're doing the same old shit. Training gets boring. It's not as exciting. And you're not really seeing any gains from it. So if you're going to maximize training, we have to have some pieces in place in order to make it optimal. And there's too many of you listening right now for me to tell you exactly how to optimize your training, because you, the individual, will vary from me or from the next guy. So I just want to give you some framework here today so you could start to structure your program a little bit better, a little bit differently, so you could see more progress and more results in the gym. So, a few episodes ago, I don't know which one it was, I gave you a whole rundown on, throwing in the warm-up, how to throw in some finishers, how to structure your actual training, whether it's upper, lower, full body, or whatever. So, I'll get you the episode number for that, and I'll put that in the show notes so you could go back and listen to that one, so I don't have to repeat myself here. Excuse me. But I think that it would be important for you to really understand the key concepts here, and if you're going to make real progress, right? So if you're going to actually get stronger, if you're going to actually get bigger, fat loss kind of is a byproduct to training and your nutrition and your sleep and stress management. So that's a whole different topic, because even if your goal is to get lean and you want to lose fat, you should still be training with these same basic principles, right? So the first thing that you should do, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that people kind of go cold right from, it's like the office to the car to the gym to the bench press. And there's nothing in between. There's no warm-up. So people are going in cold, and even if it's not a catastrophic, instantaneous injury, that's a lot of wear and tear over the years if you're not warming up properly. So you got to really address the soft tissue. So one thing is you got to get your nervous system primed and ready to train. The other thing is the tissue. You got to get the soft tissue warmed up, softened up, so to speak, right? and in a better, safer state to train in. So going through a thorough dynamic warm-up, now that could be 8 to 10 minutes, but if you're doing an upper body day, you address some upper body stuff. If you're doing a lower body day, lower body. If you're doing full body, right? Rocket science here, but make sure that you take the time to address a warm-up, because if you just keep going in cold, you're not going to get the most out of your actual training. So forget about injuries for a second. You're not going to get the most out of your actual training because your nervous system is you're still going to be in that parasympathetic state. You're going to kind of be a little bit tired, feel a little funky. So you got to get out of that state. You got to get into training mode, right? You got to get your music flowing, get your heart beating a little faster, get that sweat going, get those joints lubricated, get those muscles activated. Now you're in a more ready and safer state to train in. So now once you get into the actual training for the day, let's first take a look at how to structure this, because a lot of times people ask me, how often do I cycle exercises? And I'm not going to get into periodization today and talk about, a conjugate approach where you're cycling the main lift every day or every week. It's certainly not a bad thing. It's definitely not. But I just want to keep this simple for you. All right. So this way you could have an actual takeaway from today's show and you could start to apply it. So here's what I want you to do. First off, I want you to write out your training program. Let's just say you're training 3 days per week and you're doing a lower, upper, and full body split. So Monday you do a lower body day, Wednesday you do an upper body day, Friday you do full body. Let's just pretend that's what you're doing here. I want you to write out what you're going to do for the next 3 weeks. So I want you to write out your quote unquote day 1. I want you to write out your day 2, write out your day 3. Now, your total training volume for actual work sets is going to be somewhere around 12 to 20 total working sets, okay? 12 to 20 total working sets for the entire day. Should take you somewhere around 60 minutes, okay? So that's not including your ramp-up sets or your warm-up sets, okay? But 12 to 20 actual working sets. So now that you're gonna write that out, and let me get into this. So if we're going to do a lower body day, okay, let's think of the movement patterns that you want to program. So we definitely want to, in your training in general, as a whole, in your program, we want to address the squat pattern. Whatever variation you use is up to you based on your training history, your injury history, and a lot of other things, your goals, right? Some type of squat pattern, some type of hinge pattern, some type of lunge or unilateral pattern, okay? We certainly want to get some type of, now here's the thing, calves and stuff like that's optional, right? If you want to throw in some hypertrophy stuff like leg extensions, leg curls, that stuff's cool too. It's optional. If you have access to machines and you want to throw that stuff in as a little bit of like a finisher, some pump work, that stuff's cool. But your primary staples are going to be the squat, the hinge, and the lunge, okay? Or sometimes even a step up could fall into that category, like a unilateral pattern. Now, on lower body days, I also like to work in abdominal work, right? So we could work in direct abdominal work and also anti-rotation work, right? So we could work in that abdominal work. That's your basic stuff, right? You want to do hanging leg raises, hanging knee raises, even sit-ups, rope crunches, reverse crunches. If you want to train your abs, you can totally throw that stuff in. Don't forget to throw in the rotational work as well, okay? And don't forget to throw in the anti-rotation stuff. So that's why I like to throw in loaded carries on lower body days, and as well as other anti-rotation exercises. So like anti-rotation alphabets with a band or one of my go-tos, stuff like that, different plank variations. So we want to throw all that stuff in. Now, again, 12 to 20 total working sets, give or take, throughout the entire workout. So you don't need to do every single pattern on the lower body day, right? But let's just say you structure it where you are doing a squat pattern, you are doing a hinge pattern, you are doing some type of unilateral lunge pattern, and then we could throw in some other accessory work, and then we throw in some abs, and we call it a day. So now let me just get back to the structure here. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I want to give you the just some framework so you understand what I'm going to say. So if you have those pieces in place, right, on your leg day, it's like, okay, now how do you structure this? What kind of order do you put it in? So I always used to do my big lift first. If you followed me for a while, you know that I'm more of a fan of programming the big lift later in the workout. So let's just say that my big lift of the day is going to be a squat. And let's just say I'm working up to a 6 rep max on my squat, on a safety bar squat. And that's my main lift of the day. I might program 1A and 1B. So 1A might be let's just say a reverse lunge. 1B might be RDLs. Now, the reason that I would do that, maybe you do 2 or 3 sets of, let's just say, anywhere from 8 to 12 for each of those exercises. Okay, so I like to program that first. So I go through my warm-up, and then, by the way, I'll finish my warm-up with something explosive, whether it be some type of jump, some type of sprint, or some type of med ball throw, okay, for maybe 3 to 5 sets to finish that off my warm-up. Now I'm in a state where my nervous system's heightened and I'm ready to go. Okay, so that warm-up takes me 10 minutes. Now I'm going to get into 1A and 1B, the lunge and the hinge. Okay, so now I'm going to hit those sets. What do you think that's doing? First of all, you're getting more of a pump. You're getting more blood in the muscles. We are now improving tissue quality even further. You're breaking more of a sweat, right? You're getting that heart rate elevated a little bit more. So now you're going to be even more primed by the time you get into your main lift, right? Which is going to be the squat. Now you might think, doesn't that fatigue me? Am I going to lose a little bit of my strength? The answer is yes, especially in the beginning, you will, right? If I just go, I do my warm up and I get right into my squats, I'm going to feel a little bit stronger because I'm not pre-fatigued as if I were to, if I go through the couple sets of lunges and hinges, right? So you will early on lose a small percentage. But here's the thing. You're not a power lifter, right? Odds are you're listening to the show, you're not a power lifter. You just want to train to be strong, to be jacked, to be lean, to be fit, to be healthy, and be able to train for the long haul. Now, since a squat is such a big, complex movement, right, and a stressful movement, right, if we are moving that later on in the workout, and even let's just say you lose 5% on the numbers or the total load that you're going to train with for your working sets, well, you just made that exercise a lot safer. It's still going to recruit the same amount of muscle. It's still going to be just as challenging. You could still build just as much muscle, and you could still get stronger over time. We could still progress. Now, if you're squatting 315 instead of 325 that day, do you really think that's going to kill your gains? Again, you're not just pushing numbers. If you're not a power lifter and you're not just pushing numbers, even if you're an athlete and your goal is to get stronger so you can perform better, you could still get stronger because even though today you might be using 315, next week you might be using 320, the following week you might be using 325, and then you're going to continuously make improvements over time. Okay, so we get a couple of those movement patterns in before the big lift. Now we program that big lift, let's just say third on the list, okay? So you can hit that big lift, let's just say you work up to a 6 RM, an 8 RM, something like that, and then afterwards, then we get some more accessory work in. So this is where you could throw in some pump work. This is where you could train your traps, your abs, your neck. You want to get a finisher in. Now that all comes after that big lift of the day. So let's just say 1A and 1B, you have 3 sets of each, so that gives you 6 total working sets. Now we're working up to, we said a 6 RM for the squat, right? Let's just say it takes you 5 sets to do that, right? So that gives you about 11 sets right there. Okay, we're going to count those ramp-up sets, okay, as working sets. And then finally, okay, then now we have some room to throw in either some more unilateral stuff, some more abdominal work, some more hypertrophy work for the quads, for the hamstrings, for the calves, right? You have those sets now to kind of finish off. So maybe 2 or 3 sets of that type of stuff to finish off, okay? So that's what it would look like within the day. But over the course of your week now, so let's just say you're starting this fresh. You're starting this on the first week, okay? So now this first week, you don't want to go to failure. You don't want to blow your load too soon because remember, your goal is to do this exact program that you're going to write out 3 weeks in a row, okay? So you're going to do this program 3 weeks in a row. So if you go to failure, let's just say you're supposed to do a set of 8 and you only get a set of 6 because you guessed too heavy, right? That means you have no room to increase or the load over the next few weeks for the rep range that you originally created for yourself. All right? So if that's the case, now you can't progress. You just buried yourself. All right? So from a strength standpoint, you're going to be working backwards, and that probably means if you went to failure so early on that first week, your form's probably going to shit. So now you're kind of screwing yourself on different levels here. So that first week, the weight that you choose should be challenging, but it shouldn't be balls heavy where you just barely got that last rep. You want to always save a rep or 2 in the tank. The following week, your goal is to either increase weight or increase repetitions. All right, so in this case, we're going to increase weight, okay? Again, the weight should be challenging, okay? And if you had an adaptation from the week prior, you should be able to go a little bit heavier, assuming that your life is good and you slept well and you ate well and you're recovered and ready to train. But that's another story. And then on that third and final week of the program, that's where you're going to really push the envelope. The goal is not to miss reps. The goal is not for your form to break down. But you're going to push it a little bit more. There should have been an adaptation now that you've created where you could really see an improvement in strength and in your numbers on that third week. Again, assuming that everything goes well. You're not fighting with the spouse. You're sleeping well. You're eating well. You didn't go out drinking the night before, right? There's a lot of other factors there. But let's just pretend we're living in a fucking bubble here, in a perfect world. All right, so over those 3 weeks, we want to progress. So now we're going to do the same thing, obviously, with day 2 and day 3. I just gave you a sample structure for your day 1 program. So day 1, day 2, and day 3. You go through that for your first week. You try to increase on the second week, and then you try to increase again on the third week. Now, what you're doing there, that is called the progressive overload principle. To progressively overload, that means we're going to go up in either weight or reps or sets, right? So either weight, load, or total volume, all right, which would be sets and reps over the course of your 3-week period. Now, this goes back to, when I started this conversation, I was telling you that most people kind of just go and spin their wheels and just kind of, I'm going to do that exercise. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to know how to perform these exercises well. So I want you to actually pick the exercises that you're comfortable and familiar with. If you don't have a coach working with you, if you're programming for yourself, pick exercises that you are comfortable with, or hire somebody to teach you how to do certain things. But you want to make sure that you're doing things correctly and doing them safely. All right? So step 1, you're going to write out your program. You're going to do, this is exactly what you're going to do for the next 3 weeks. Okay? When you write out your program, you're going to have about 12 to 20 total working sets for your day, for your training day, okay? 12 to 20 working sets. So now you have that in place. So you get to the gym on week 1, you go through your warm-up that we talked about, you get to your training, you leave some room in the tank, you don't go to complete failure, you do that for the entire first week. Here's the key. You're going to bring a fucking notebook with you, and you're going to track your weights. The same notebook that you wrote this routine down in, you have day 1, day 2, and day 3 written. I want you to write underneath that week 1, and I want you to write the weights and the reps that you've accomplished for each exercise. So this way, next week, on week 2, there is no guesswork. You're going to get right into week 2. You're going to know what weight to use, how many reps you got last week, how many sets you did, and now you're going to execute on week 2 with the intention to beat week 1. You're going to do that for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, you're going to change your routine. Okay, so now you have a new training phase. Now, again, I don't want to get too deep into periodization today because that's going to confuse you. That's a whole nother podcast. So let's just think of it in the sense of these 3-week cycles that you're going to go through. So if that's the first phase, how are we going to progress the second phase? Let's just say the next 3-week block. How are we going to progress that, right? Because you want to progress week after week. But remember, you're not just going to get stronger, and just keep going for the next year, right? Maybe if you're a raw beginner, you could see some type of crazy gains like that. But for the most part, we're going to have ups and downs, right? So the growth and the increases of strength are not linear, right? Otherwise, we'd all be benching 2,000 pounds, squatting 2,000 pounds. So there's going to be some limits there. There's going to be a genetic potential and a lot of other variables. So once you start that second cycle, right, that second phase, that first week, it's almost going to serve as like a built-in deload week. Because again, you don't want to go to complete failure on that first week. You don't want to go balls to the wall and destroy yourself. Guys, if you do that, you're going to destroy your joints over time. You're going to roast your nervous system. You're going to feel like shit. So you have to have that almost like a built-in deload where that first week, it's like you're going to train, but it's going to be at about 70%, right? 70, 75%. We're not going 100% max effort, okay? That first week, you're going to that's where you're going to start. And again, we're going to build off of that. You're going to make sure that you're tracking your weights. You're going to make sure that you know you have your game plan and you're going to stay on top of it. And that's how you're going to make real progress instead of just mindlessly showing up to the gym, training, not knowing what to do. And then just over the year, 2 years, 3 years, you still look exactly the same. Your strength is exactly the same. And we're in the same exact spot. So in order for you to make the progress that you want to see, you have to have that game plan in place, okay? Again, I'd like to program that bigger lift later in the workout, hit your hypertrophy, your volume stuff later on, and get in and out of there within 60 minutes, okay? You could be short and sweet to the point. And now, I think one of the biggest, most overlooked things is the execution of your exercise, okay? The execution of the lift that you're performing. Because so many guys are just kind of going through the motions and, you know, they just throw whatever weight on that they want to throw on and just go, right? So now that you understand weight selection a little bit better, and by the way, let me just take a step back here. As far as your weight selection, the weight, it cannot be too light either on that first week, okay? There is a balance here, guys, that you have to figure out where the weight can't be too heavy, but it certainly can't be too light because then there's no adaptation. You're not going to get stronger or build muscle if you're not challenging the body. You have to create a true stimulus in order for the body to adapt and respond and grow. So think of it this way. If you're going to do a set of 10, maybe you choose a weight on that first week for the first set that you could do for at least 12. Okay? If you're going to do a set of 10, you pick a weight that you know you could do for 12. So now and 12 with a gun to your head, right? So now that weight is challenging, stimulating, but you're leaving some room to progress. And maybe on your third set of the day, it's your last set, maybe you go up 5 pounds and you make it a tough 10. Okay, but now the second week, on week 2, you could start where you finished, right? And then you could progress over your 3 sets that way. So let's just say you finished your set of dumbbell presses with 80s and you got 10, and it was a tough 10 on the first week, but you had a little bit of room. Second week, set number 1, you start with those 80s. They felt good. You felt strong. We bump it to 85s for those last 2 sets, right? That's progression 2, right? If you did 75, 75, 80 on week 1, then guess what? 80, 85, 85 is a nice jump on that second week. But the weight can't be piss light, all right? Too many guys fucking train soft. If it says a set of 10 and you're using a weight that you could handle 30 reps with, how the fuck do you expect to grow? You're never going to grow that way. You got to challenge yourself too. So don't think I'm telling you to go easy and just go through the motions. You have to train with intent. You have to train with focus. And now the execution of the lift is going to be probably the biggest factor here. Okay, because I don't give a shit about like the programming and all this stuff. It's of course it's important. But if your execution sucks, then none of that matters. So you have to focus on your technique, and I want you to really focus and address the muscles that are being trained so you could actually train and target the areas that we're supposed to be training and targeting, right? So that might be a slower eccentric, so there's not bouncing and this ballistic loading of the fucking soft tissues and joints in the bottom, right? Because that's beating up your joints, right? So more of a control on the eccentric, maybe a slight pause, and then change direction. Focusing on where your joint alignment, focusing on muscular contraction, right? That will take so much more out of you than you realize for a set of 10. Your fucking heart rate will be through the roof. You'll be sweating. The muscles will be burning, right? So if you focus on the intent, and some exercises, the intent is actually speed and power. If you're doing a med ball slam, you should be throwing that fucking ball into the ground like your life depends on it, explosively, fast, because that is the intent. I see people doing med ball slams sometimes. It's like, what do you think that's doing? You're just kind of going up, and no fault of their own. They weren't taught. I'm not shitting on anybody here. But I want you to understand, as a listener to the show, how to fucking do this shit right. You know what I'm saying? So when you perform an exercise that's supposed to be explosive, make sure that you're doing it explosively. Boom, boom, explode. You want to throw that ball with power and with speed. Okay, so whatever the intention of that particular lift or exercise is, make sure you are executing appropriately. All right, so you have some framework now to create your program for the next 3 weeks. Okay, we talked about the lower body patterns. Okay, now for upper body, we want to make sure that you're programming horizontal pushing. That would be your push-ups, your dumbbell presses, your bench presses, that type of stuff. You also want to make sure that you are programming horizontal pulling. Okay, that's going to be your row variations and some other upper back stuff. Okay, so when you're programming it, here's what I want you to take note of. I want you to do 2 or 3 times the amount of volume for horizontal pulling than you do for horizontal pushing. So that means, let's keep it simple. If you're going to do 3 sets of 10 on a dumbbell press, I want you to program 3 sets of 20 on a cable row. That would be an easy way to look at it. You could also do it by adding exercises. And so, like, if you don't want to just do high reps and sets of 20 on a cable row, you could just program more volume or more exercises for the horizontal pulling pattern. if that makes sense. So for instance, if you wanted to do 3 sets of 10 on presses and 3 sets of 10 on the horizontal, let's just say a seated cable row, maybe we throw in another 2 or 3 sets of 10 on a chest supported row or something like that, right? So we're just adding more volume. So however you want to do it, I still like to hit certain rows with a good amount of weight. So I want to make sure, I'm not going piss light all the time either and just doing sets of 20. So you might want to program, heavy one arm rows for sets of 8 or 10 or whatever. And then you could just throw in some more upper back stuff later on in the workout. But again, the same rules apply. You go through your warm up. I want to have some primer exercises. Again, these aren't just throwaway sets. These are sets for the primer. So let's just say your main lift of the day is a barbell floor press, right? And again, using the same example like I used for the squat, let's just say you're working up to a 6 rep max that day for your main lift on the barbell floor press. So 1A and 1B, that might be maybe we're doing some type of push-up variation for 1A for 3 sets of, let's just say 20, right? Where you could throw on, whatever is challenging for a set of 20 for you. Maybe you throw on a weighted vest. Maybe you do suspended push-ups. There's so many different options there. And then 1B, maybe we're doing chest-supported rows for, 3 sets of, let's just say if we're doing 3 sets of 20 on the push-ups, let's just keep it simple and say we're going to do 3 sets of 20 on those chest-supported rows. Now that our shoulders are primed, we're going to have more of a pump. We're going to have more blood flowing. And now for our number 2, right, our main lift of the day, the floor press, now you're going to be more primed and ready to go. Okay, so then I definitely want to throw in some vertical pulling. So that's going to be your chin-up variations. That's going to be your pull-downs, right? Use different angles, use different attachments, throw in eccentrics, be creative with that. Now, as far as vertical pressing, not everybody could or should press overhead because they don't have the shoulder mobility to do it. So instead of a vertical push, for most of you listening, you might just be throwing in some isolation delt exercises, exercises that are just way more joint friendly. Maybe you throw in a landmine press or something like that, because pressing overhead is not the greatest for the shoulders. I'm not against it. I actually enjoy overhead pressing. My shoulders always feel fine, but that doesn't mean that everybody is set up to overhead press the right way. So, with keeping your ribs down, keeping your glutes and your abs on, getting that proper angle overhead. There's a lot involved there. Thoracic mobility. So if you don't have that, or if you're not sure, you could just stick to certain isolation exercises for the delts, like side raises, and there's so many different variations that you could do there. And then I always like to finish off with some type of finisher. And typically that's some type of pump for the gun. So I'll throw in direct bicep and tricep work. I mean, it can't be a meathead from New Jersey and not throw in direct arm work here. Come on, what kind of show you think this is? So throw in some gun pump up the guns. And then on your full body day, what you can do here is, just kind of go over those patterns. You don't want to destroy yourself on this day. So what I like to do is throw in like some single leg stuff. Maybe I'll throw in some kettlebell swings on this day. Definitely those other patterns here. So we're going to hit horizontal pushing again. We're going to hit some more upper back stuff, maybe some more vertical pulling, maybe throw some more arm work in there. Again, don't go crazy, 12 to 20 sets. Full body days, you're probably going to be closer to that 20 set mark. If you want to throw in some conditioning, however you want to do a finisher, go back. I have an episode that I put out a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure. Again, sorry, I apologize, but I forgot the episode number. But I gave you a list of different finishers that you could do, whether you want to get a pump or some conditioning. So that is also an option for you too. So you guys could finish off your training session with a good, tough finisher, get a little challenge in, get a little pump or some conditioning, and you call it a day. But just, again, guys, this was a very general, this was just a very basic layout here. But if you just take what I told you and you start to apply these principles or these rules or these guidelines, whatever the fuck you want to call them, you start to apply that, you're going to see a lot more progress, okay? So you don't want to just do the mindless workout thing. You want to make sure you have consistency in your training. And guess what? That's also going to keep you excited. You're also going to be really, when you show up to the gym, like, okay, I want to beat these numbers today, or I want to get more reps today. I want to do, because it's a way for you to challenge yourself. If you're not excited, then it's going to be dull, right? You're going to be fucking bored. So get these things lined up, and I guarantee you're going to start to have more fun in your training as well. And don't overthink the programming. Don't overthink it. Just put something in place so you know what you're going to do, so you can execute it for the next 3 weeks and progress on it. But the execution of the lift and making sure you choose an appropriate weight, making sure you warm up properly, and the sequencing of your exercises to keep you safe and focus on training longevity, that's going to be a big factor too. So having that programmed, having the big lift of the day programmed later in the workout is going to be more beneficial for you for the long haul. It's going to keep you safer, keep those joints healthier, and keep you out of pain. I think that's all I got for you guys today. But let me see, am I missing anything here? We talked about the warm-up. We talked about structuring the routine, in 3-week blocks, kind of cycling through it, not overcomplicating your program design. The execution of the exercises. I guess the last and final thing I want to add here is just make sure that you show up and you fucking focus. Because if you just train and you're looking at your phone and you're kind of looking around the gym and you're checking out the chick's ass over in her new yoga pants. I just got a British accent there out of nowhere. Yoga pants? Is that British? What did I do there? I don't know what happened. I think I had a stroke. If you check out the chick in the yoga pants and you're just focused and you're distracted, then you're not going to have the focus to perform those lifts with the intent and execute properly in order to see adaptation. So get those things in check. And if you enjoyed the show today, if you found it helpful, do me a favor. Take a quick screenshot of it right now. Just screenshot the episode and share it in your stories. Tell your friends to go check out the episode. Tag me in it. I'll repost it. I always appreciate the love and support. So I hope that this episode helped you, give you a little bit more clarity on how to create a better program for yourself and how to get better results in the next 12 months. All right. As always, guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I always appreciate you. I appreciate the love and support. Share this episode on your social media. Tag me in it, and I will catch you next time on another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. Peace.